Thank you so much for joining us for CBN Newswatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, blistering heat baking much of the nation. Not enough for you? Temperatures climbing to more than 90 degrees and into the hundreds in some parts of the United States.
We've never put out a 10-day forecast quite like this.
We'll be up around 108 to 109, and the record high as it stands, 110.
60 million people across the country are expected to face temperatures in the triple digits in the days ahead. Former Pentagon officials are sounding the alarm that China is rapidly gaining ground in key technological areas like artificial intelligence.
We're getting behind in really the sectors in cyber and AI/ML that are the most important to win the next battle.
And the concern is China may get so far ahead, the U.S. won't be able to catch up. Republicans making major inroads among a key group of voters, Hispanics, and that means big gains for the GOP.
Florida, Texas, Nevada, even California. We saw the flipping of certain districts, very strong progressive districts, flipping red, not even going purple, going from hard blue to red. And there was one common denominator. These districts were primarily over 60% Hispanic populated.
We'll bring you that story from an important swing state, Nevada. And Trent Shelton faced difficult setbacks in his past after injuries ended his professional football career.
You will never win your war by running from your battle. So you have to face it. If you never face it, you'll never fix it. And it's only a mistake when you don't learn from it. I always say failure is feedback.
Now he's a motivational speaker, and we'll hear how speaking at a church service helped things change for the better. All those stories and more ahead on CBN Newswatch.
This is CBN Newswatch.
I want to begin with that extreme heat sweeping the country. Many areas of the United States facing temperatures that could feel like 115 degrees today. Temperatures are heating up from coast to coast here in the U.S., while Europe is seeing deadly consequences from one of the worst heat waves on record. Abigail Robertson brings us the story.
60 million people across the U.S. are expected to face temperatures in the triple digits in the coming days in a heat wave covering coast to coast.
We've never put out a 10-day forecast quite like this.
A Houston station showed 10 days straight of 100 degrees or higher for the first time ever, with Dallas on track to break heat records.
We'll be up around 108 to 109, and the record high as it stands, 110.
Texans are being asked to conserve electricity and water, with looming concerns over the power grid's ability to handle the high demand.
We're experiencing a stress on our system because of peak demands with peak weather conditions.
In Arizona, a UPS driver collapsed at a customer's front door in 110-degree heat. UPS says he's okay. Overseas, high temperatures are causing dozens of out-of-control wildfires to spread across Spain, Portugal, and Greece. This harrowing video shows train passengers in Zamora, Spain, passing through fire on both sides. Officials in Spain and Portugal claim more than 1,100 people have died already as a result of the deadly heat. The UK issued its first ever extreme heat warning.
We've never seen temperatures as high as this in the UK before.
Famously stoic Buckingham Palace guards seen accepting water. Back here at home, a lack of grass and water are forcing cattle ranchers to sell their livestock, which could drive up beef prices at the grocery store. Reporting from Virginia, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
More than 100 churches have gone to court suing the Florida Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church because they want to leave the denomination immediately. The main reason, disagreements over United Methodist clergy performing marriages for LGBTQ couples and ordaining LGBTQ people as clergy in the church. 106 churches want to leave the denomination and take their property with them. The lawsuit says the church leadership is not abiding by the church's Book of Discipline, which deals with Christian doctrine. Former Pentagon officials are sounding the alarm over the dangers of America losing its status as the global leader in technology and innovation. China is rapidly gaining ground, and as Caitlin Burke reports, the warning is that if action isn't taken now, it could be too late.
There's a high-tech battle going on between the U.S. and China with much at stake. Now, experts are speaking out, concerned the U.S. isn't currently competing enough to come out on top.
We're getting behind in really the sectors in cyber and AI/ML that are the most important to win the next battle.
Nick Chaillan filled the role as the first chief software officer of the Air Force and Space Force. He resigned last September over his concern regarding U.S. complacency.
You see China, for example, doing 200 hypersonic launches versus 10 in the United States. That's obviously very alarming. And then you hear the chairman of the Joint Staff say that it's only almost a Sputnik moment.
That's a sort of a clear example of risk-taking and speed that China's been taking, whereas the risk aversion that we have here to be able to experiment and try something new on the government side has been a real challenge.
Preston Dunlap is another high-tech defense official who basically followed Chaillan's lead. Dunlap served as the inaugural chief architect officer of the Air Force and Space Force, and both men agree that to maintain technological dominance, the U.S. must act now.
When it comes to the compounded evolution of AI, there's a point where you can't physically catch up because we're dealing with a nation of 1.4 billion people, massive volume of data, and the more data you get in AI, the better the AI can learn and get better and stronger with time.
I do think now is the time to begin to pivot and change that curve, because it takes a while to turn an aircraft carrier. It takes a while to turn the technological pace that we have here in the nation.
Chaillan estimates that if tremendous progress isn't made within the next 6 months, keeping up won't be the issue. The U.S. will face the challenge of catching up. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Americans' confidence in two major news media institutions, newspapers and television news, has fallen to all-time lows. Just 16% of U.S. adults now say they have a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in newspapers, and only 11% in television news. Those are the lowest numbers since Gallup began tracking Americans' confidence in newspapers back in 1973 and television news in 1993. Coming up, a mass exodus of Hispanics from the Democratic Party. Districts with large Latino presence are now moving toward the Republican Party. CBN News reveals what's behind this massive shift and what it could mean for the upcoming midterm elections. The story for you when we come back. Democrats are facing huge challenges in the 2022 elections, including inflation and President Biden sinking poll numbers. Another major challenge, a growing demographic. Latino voters are more conservative than Democrats. CBN's Matt Galka reports from Nevada, where the battle is on to secure these crucial votes.
Are Latino voters shying away from Democrats? The demographic has been highly sought after and will continue to be by both parties as we head into November. And the work is already being done on the ground here in Nevada.
Do you think I could leave this at your door? I work with Make the Road Nevada.
Door after door in the sizzling heat of the Las Vegas summer.
You guys gonna vote early this year or in election day? Probably election day.
Mauricio Garcia knocks on doors for Make the Road Nevada, attempting to persuade prospective voters. The conversations vary from immigration to inflation to health care.
And our Únete al Movimiento cards, right?
Civic Engagement Director Jessica Padron is well aware of the inroads made by the GOP and worries about an exodus of Latino voters to the right. She's concerned Democrats may have taken this key voting bloc for granted and need to wake up.
I do feel that while some of the policies may not be very popular from the Republican Party, they are investing way more and doing outreach offices in these communities. They're doing events in these communities. The Democratic playbook has not changed. They're still doing the same, what I call mariachi politics, which is a taco truck, some mariachis in the same little couple corners. And that doesn't reach when you have, you know, for example, a Nicaraguan community, Cuban community, other groups. I think it's really important that we engage all these voters and not just say, well, they're automatically going to vote Republican or they're automatically going to vote Democrat. It's about who talks to you, who makes you feel good, who educates you and who's there for you, not just during the election period, but after.
Nevada could become ground zero where the true impact of a movement is revealed, possibly signaling which party will go on to control Congress after the midterm elections. In 2020, Latinos made up more than 400,000 eligible voters in the Silver State, a number that's projected to make up about 1 out of 5 votes cast here. Both parties would like the numbers on their side. Political insider and Nevada Independent editor Elizabeth Thompson says it would be unwise for Democrats to focus on a singular issue like immigration, with issues like inflation and rising costs squeezing all Nevada voters.
But the numbers don't lie. One of the reasons that Donald Trump won in Nevada last time around was because he got a larger share of the Hispanic and Latino vote than most people expected him to. I think that was a little bit of a wake-up call for the Democrats.
And the trends are hard to ignore. Joe Biden lost ground with Hispanic voters in 2020, while Donald Trump made 10-point gains nationwide. Republicans are trying to keep that momentum going in 2022. The Libre Initiative is focusing its ground game on the economy. Libre's Eddie Diaz says anxiety over the cost of living can be tied directly to the party that's in power now.
Talking about how this year we're going to pay over $5,000 more in taxes. We're going to pay like $1,200 more just in gas, close to $500 more in groceries. And they're taking notice of that. And they know who's in power, which administration has control currently, and they're getting turned off.
Democrats took another hit in June when Texas Republican Mayra Flores won a special election in a heavily Latino House district that had traditionally voted blue.
We cannot accept the increase of gas, of food, of medication. We cannot accept that.
Flores is getting national attention now, and Pastor Samuel Rodriguez believes her win is just the beginning.
Florida, Texas, Nevada, even California, we saw the flipping of certain districts, very strong progressive districts, flipping red, not even going purple, going from hard blue to red. And there was one common denominator. These districts were primarily over 60% Hispanic populated.
Rodriguez is an influential voice as leader of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference, which represents more than 40,000 churches nationwide. While he welcomes this trend and believes it's rooted in faith values, he says it's premature to anoint the GOP as the party of Latinos.
As more and more whites shift towards the left, more and more Latinos are shifting towards the right. So be careful in wanting to deport the future of the conservative movement. So, that sort of language, tone, rhetoric, it's important that for Republicans to be cognizant and aware of that.
Back on the ground in Nevada, Marco Hernandez considers himself part of the shift. A candidate for one of the seats on the Clark County Commission, he ran as a Democrat last election cycle and came up just short. He switched to an independent since then.
I'm actually one of them. I went from being a Democrat to a nonpartisan for the same reason that everybody feels like, both party lines are blaming each other for work that needs to be done and nobody wants to do anything about it. People are fed up and they want to see change. They don't want to see the same old politics.
Now, one of the reasons that both parties are so focused on the demographic, the Latino population has quintupled in the country in the past 50 years. Nevada could be an indication of where at least some of those voters are going. In Las Vegas, Matt Gelka, CBN News.
Still ahead, he succeeded in his dream to play pro football, but then injuries ended that career. That did not stop Trent Shelton. We're going to show you what step he took to become a motivational speaker around the world. We've got the story for you when we come back, including how speaking at a church service helped to change things for the better. Stay with us. He's considered one of the best motivational speakers of our time. Trent Shelton is a man focused on helping generations to never give up in life and in living your purpose. In the NFL, he played for the then Washington Redskins, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Seattle Seahawks. But while Trent's dream to play for the NFL came true, it quickly ended after several injuries. Trent started to feel like he was losing every battle in life and didn't feel a sense of purpose. That all changed for the better after he spoke at a church service in 2011. He joined CBN's The Prayer Link program this week to talk about his life, influence, and his motivational books.
take us back to the time that you felt you had no purpose in life. And what was that like for you? And what happened at that church service in 2011 that changed everything?
Yeah, it was devastating. I mean, football was my everything. And so I always tell people, just imagine losing your everything. At that point, I felt like I had nothing to live for. Two situations changed my life, the birth of my son, and one of my best friends committed suicide. In that moment, I made a promise to Anthony that I would live the rest of my life in my purpose. And my purpose was real to me my whole entire life, but I was so focused on what I wanted to do, I was blind to what God called me to do. It was that church service that my friend asked me to speak at. I'm an introverted person. I didn't want to speak. I tried to find all the ways out of it, had stage fright. And in that moment, I felt peace in the midst of all these uncertain things. And I knew, talking to these 5,000 kids, which seemed like 20,000, that this is what I was meant to do. So right after I made the decision to pursue what I do today.
Wow. That's amazing. And Trent, you talk about some of life's biggest challenges in your book, straight up. One section talks about past hurts and excuses. Why was it important to include that? And how would you encourage others to move forward from their past mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, you will never win your war by running from your battle. So you have to face it. If you never face it, you'll never fix it. And it's only a mistake when you don't learn from it. I always say failure is feedback. And so the things that we went through, the things that we've been through really qualifies us to help other people get through it. So use it. Use it for your power. What's meant to break you, like the world puts on you, is really meant to build you. So I just realized that everything I've been through was an experience, not just for myself, but also to help other people get through their situations in life. So your purpose is not just for you. It's actually for other people.
Oh, I love that. That's so good.
Failure is feedback. I love
failure
that.
Is feedback.
Oh gosh,
that's a tweetable moment. I love that.
Hashtag.
Yes. And Trent, in your book, The Greatest You cover numerous topics, including finding purpose, forgiveness, and working on relationships. And you also talk about what you call the champion mindset. Could you explain what that is and give us one or two steps that you highlight about that?
Absolutely. The champion mindset is just winning your championships in life, whether that's a sports championship for athletes or just whatever it is, your dream, your goal, the pinnacle of what God has called you to do. And I always tell people it's 5 traits, but one of the biggest traits is consistency. You know, a lot of people say I have a consistency problem. I always tell people, no, you're very consistent. You're consistent at doing things that probably you hate to do every single day. It's just that you don't understand how much it's cost you not to be consistent to the thing that you love. And the second part of that mindset is faith. I always say, you know, faith is believing the odds are beatable, even when the odds say it's impossible. I mean, we're all human beings of faith, knowing that something is going to take place or happen that we can't see yet. And faith is in your feet. So I always tell champions, hey, you got to walk it out. You got to trust that God is guiding you somewhere. Even if you don't understand the path that he has you on, you got to trust in his plan and his promises. So it's a big part of winning your championships in life.
Yeah, and so much of it is just showing up. You know, because God's going to meet you there. Just show up.
Yes.
All right, Trent, you turned your pain into purpose by creating Rehab Time. What is the purpose of Rehab Time, and how has it helped you and is helping others?
Yeah, Rehab Time is simply this. It's putting a strength into a weakness. We all have something inside of us, whether it's a silent battle that we all have, something we all face, but we have something that we can better, something that we can strengthen. You know, maybe it's a health thing, maybe it's a habit thing in your life. And so I always say, man, what's that thing that you can make stronger? And actually, I'm going through a rehab process. I just tore my Achilles. And so I'm reminding myself doing this physical rehab that I'm going to come back stronger as long as I trust the process and as long as I have patience in the process. And so that's what Rehab Time is about, whether that's addiction, whether that's bouncing back from a relationship or job. It's about using those things that were meant to work against you, using those things for your good.
So I love that. And Trent, what advice would you give someone dealing with defeat and who really just feels like, I just want to give up right now?
Yeah, your life isn't over. You know, that situation that happened in your life is not the end of your life. Just because that dream is over, that sport is over, that relationship is over, doesn't mean your life is over. God has a plan that's way bigger than what you lost. God has a plan of way bigger than what has set you back. And you got to believe that God will give you back better than what you lost. So you have to be able to operate every single day by not quitting, by not giving up, and trust that you will meet the greatest version of yourself. Trust that that purpose that you pray for will be revealed to you, but you got to keep walking forward and you can't stay stagnant in your life.
I love it.
Trust that you will meet the greatest version of yourself. Just keep moving forward.
Yes.
Trent, you gave us so much to think about and pray about, and we're praying blessings over you and your healing, a quick healing.
Yes.
We know healing can be a process, but Lord, do a quick work for Trent in Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name.
God bless you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Trent.
And you can get Trent's book, Straight Talk and The Greatest You, wherever books are sold. You can also catch the prayer link this evening at 6:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. You can also find it on the CBN News app. Coming up, Aventer Gray, the wife of megachurch pastor John Gray, says prayers are being answered after her husband was admitted to the hospital as he faced life-threatening blood clots. We'll tell you what she had to say when we come back. Stay with us. Aventer Gray, the wife of megachurch pastor John Gray, says God's healing power and the prayers of believers is what's keeping her husband alive in the face of life-threatening blood clots. During Sunday's church service, she rallied churchgoers to worship and pray while testifying of what God has done so far to preserve Pastor Gray's life for more than a week. She said, "Your prayers touched heaven and God is doing some miraculous things." Aventer said multiple doctors told them there's no way he could have walked into the hospital on his own with such a major saddle pulmonary embolism. She says God held it in place and his miraculous work is still at work. She asked believers to keep praying, saying there's a long road ahead of us. You can get more details on this at cbnnews.com. Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable. This is a message I pray blesses you, and I encourage you to post tag tweet and share it with those in your circles. There is no ceiling above God's love. There is no floor beneath God's grace. His love and grace are uncontainable. Open your heart, extend your hands to receive them, and walk in his favor. With that word, make this a terrific Tuesday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. I want to remind you, you can always get more of our programs on the CBN News channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We would love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us. That address is newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly would love to hear from you. I encourage you to make today a terrific Tuesday and have yourself a wonderful rest of the week. Do it on purpose and with purpose. We look forward to seeing you right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.